Major breaking news. It's going to destroy the credibility, as I see it, of the Center for Disease Control when it comes to quote-unquote gun violence. It turns out that guns are not nearly as dangerous as one might think, especially when you compare them to American doctors and medical professionals. Wait till you hear what I've uncovered for all of you. Stay tuned. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Box of Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the U.S. Supreme Court Bar, and author of the brand new best-selling book, Disarmed: What the Ukraine War Teaches Americans About the Right to Bear Arms. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Four Boxes Diner and check out the book, Disarmed. All right, major breaking news, although you had to go across the pond to find it. It turns out, according to a study from Johns Hopkins, a great school, as well as the Harvard Medical School, that doctors, their diagnostic blunders have killed or permanently disabled 800,000 Americans a year. That's right. Specifically, I should say that according to this report, reported on by the Daily Mail, so I actually had to go across the pond to an English paper to get this information for you. But it's based on a study done here in the United States by Harvard and Johns Hopkins. According to the report by Harvard and Johns Hopkins, medical errors in the United States have cost about 371,000 lives, on top of 424,000 serious injuries, including things such as brain damage, blindness, loss of limbs, and the worsening of cancer. That's right. Now, I want to put this into some perspective. Here you go. Now, the most recent year of complete gun-related data is approximately 48,000 people died in anything relating to guns. Anything relating to guns. Accidents, suicides, of course, murders, the whole thing, the whole shebang. 48,000, of which, of course, guess what? Well over half of those numbers involve suicides. People who choose to leave this vale of tears. Could be a tragedy. Maybe it's not a tragedy. Maybe someone's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. They feel the need to, commit suicide rather than be a burden to their families. I'm not recommending it, but people do things like that. Nevertheless, all of the whole totality of gun-related issues, accidents, suicides, murders, and the like, all are about 48,000 Americans died from all gun-related injuries in total. Again, the vast majority of those are suicides. Yet now we have a study from Harvard and Johns Hopkins that shows that 371,000 people lose their lives because of medical errors every year. Now here's the key. This is bad enough. So whenever anybody wants to talk about gun violence, you should immediately ask about doctor violence, because doctors kill far more people with their mistakes than do guns. And remember, those gun violent data does include accidents. Okay? So again, keep this in mind. But beyond that, what's very interesting is that I went to the CDC website. Now, this kills the credibility, as I see it, of the Centers for Disease Control. Not that they had any credibility left as far as I'm concerned, for a whole host of reasons. But I went to the CDC website, which I'll put a link to down below, and it lists the causes of death, the leading causes of death in the United States. Now, I looked at the top 10. Here are the top 10. Heart disease, cancer, COVID-19, accidents, stroke, chronic respiratory diseases, Alzheimer's, diabetes, chronic liver disease, and so on. Okay? Now, this is a CDC list I'm putting a link to. This is not me. This is the CDC, Centers for Disease Control. These are the same people that claim that gun violence is an epidemic. We'll get to that in 1 second. First of all, I want to show you how I don't think you can trust what they're saying. Their number 10 item is nephrotic syndrome, which I actually think is a kidney-related disease. Approximately 54,000 people died a year from nephrotic syndrome, again, kidney-related disease. Here you have all gun-related deaths are at 48,000, maybe 49,000 people, approximately, according to the CDC, okay? So what's interesting is the gun-related issues are not even the top 10 causes of death in the United States. In contrast, according to the study from Johns Hopkins and Harvard, 371,000 people have died from medical errors. Now, what's interesting is if you took that number 370,000 and I put it on this list of leading causes of death in the United States, guess what? Medical errors and doctor mistakes would be the fourth leading cause of death in the United States, behind only heart disease, cancer, and COVID. Yet here you have a situation where the CDC, are they protecting their own, one asks? Are they protecting their fellow doctors, their fellow medical professionals? You know, the same professionals, those follow the science. Set that issue aside. And yet, but again, the CDC does not list medical errors as one of the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States, even though, according to Harvard and Johns Hopkins, 371,000 people a year die from it. That's on top of another 424,000 people are permanently disabled from medical errors. These numbers just are huge, orders of magnitude bigger than anything relating to guns. And yet the CDC doesn't even list them in the top 10 leading causes of death. And of course, to compound the error, I say, physician, heal thyself. Physician, heal thyself should be the message here. The real message, of course, is that tell the CDC and the medical profession, stop talking about guns. Focus on yourself. Look in the mirror and solve your own problems, because the medical profession, apparently, according to these studies, kill far more people than anything touching on guns in the United States. Now, as you know, just to give you a recent example, there's countless examples of this, but here's an article, of course, from just a week or so ago from NPR, National Public Radio. I should say federally funded, right? I think that's all correct, public funded. Nevertheless, here's from NPR. The CDC is helping states address gun injuries after years of political roadblocks. So the CDC is like, hey, we're not even capable of putting doctor deaths on our leading causes of death, but you can trust us to look into all the gun stuff, something we know absolutely nothing about. When we, of course, are experts when it comes to medical stuff, because we're all doctors and PhDs and MD PhDs and scientists, at least in theory. And they can't even understand and can't even cure medical error in the United States. And yet they now want to start talking about the quote-unquote epidemic of gun violence. So the bottom line is this. You cannot trust the CDC. You cannot trust the quote-unquote public health professionals. Okay? That's my takeaway. So I want you to make sure that someone talks about the gun violence epidemic, you need to immediately push back and say that that doctors kill far more people than guns every year. And I'll put a link to this article, and you can then check out the study yourself and see if you agree with the views I've expressed there. Okay, folks. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the Four Boxes Diner, please do so. We'll see you again here at the Four Boxes Diner. Talk to you soon.
Orders up. Table 2A.